We're disappointed to hear today that parent concerns and educator concerns were not taken into consideration as the Department of Education plunges headfirst with their plans and have no plan to shut down schools, no matter how high the numbers surge. While former Superintendent Kishimoto was unwilling to engage in meaningful discussions and make plans for just this type of situation, we hoped that interim Superintendent Hayashi might have taken those concerns into consideration. What we can't understand is that transmission is so much higher than last year, but lots of contingencies are being removed, like making sure that students are socially distant or the use of shields during meals. Our members report that despite the department saying that they have strict protocols, there's already been improper mask enforcement while forcing large group interactions over the past couple of days when they've had faculty meetings. There's already suspected transmission from some of these meetings, as well as letters going out at a number of schools that there have been cases. Sadly, just saying that schools are safe places does not make it so. With 25% of new cases being children, that is extremely worrisome. Our students under 12 have no way to vaccinate themselves, but we're willing to send them to schools on buses and on playgrounds while this extremely contagious variant spreads. The Board of Education was forward-thinking when they made the department set up distance learning options. Unfortunately, since none of this planning was done months ago, parents are already being told that distance learning is not available. I asked the governor if we could even minimally start elementary schools in distance learning until numbers come down, and was rebuffed. So while our teachers have no choice but to return to work, parents, if you don't feel school is safe for your children, you are free to exercise your right to keep your children home until you feel it is safe. With that, I'll entertain any questions.
So you had mentioned that you had asked Governor Ige to start elementary schools later. So do you have different concerns with elementary schools versus middle schools versus high schools because of the vaccinations? Is elementary your particular concern right now?
Elementary is of particular concern because none of those students can get vaccinated. We are, of course, concerned about middle schools where sixth graders are not able to get the vaccination right away. And high school, we're hopeful that as many students as possible can get the vaccine. And as interim superintendent Hayashi announced, our middle schools and high schools have been setting up vaccination clinics to get folks vaccinated. If I can just add to that, that our middle schools and our high schools are still concerned because a lot of those classes are in the upper numbers, mid 30s, upper 30s, even low 40s, and trying to be able to put desks in a socially distant fashion is not possible.
I know that you have concerns and disappointments with the way things are rolling out right now, but are there any specific things you're going to be requesting?
Absolutely. We wanted to actually ask that our memorandum of understanding, a lot of that be rolled over into this school year because we knew in bargaining that the coronavirus wasn't going to go away. But every time we asked, we want to make our school safer by doing this memorandum of understanding to make sure that certain protocols were in place. We were, again, rebuffed. And what the department says is, well, we have it in our health and safety handbook, and that's good enough. But some of those things in the health and safety handbook, we are concerned about. We're concerned that cafeterias, we're going to have children eating in close proximity to each other. And that's one of the worst case scenarios for transmitting, especially the Delta variant, which is highly contagious.
Osa, today at the governor's press conference, when asked about the potential for vaccination mandates for state and county workers, he referenced having to do consultations with public worker unions, and that would, of course, involve HSTA. First of all, has he reached out? Second, what is your inclination to entertain the idea? What would be your discussion points with him should that occur?
Thank you for the question. We are aware that he is considering such a thing. we haven't heard from his negotiators reaching out to ours as to that being something, and I don't believe any of the public sector unions have heard anything from the state at this point. From what I understand, he's taking a look at how the federal government is rolling out their plan, and maybe he's going to fashion something along those lines. But what concerns us is we don't want it to be where, okay, teachers, you have to be vaccinated, but it's okay that the rest of the school staff is not vaccinated. Or, okay, if we're going to vaccinate the whole school staff, I don't know that that makes sense if the kids can come to school unvaccinated. So there's a lot of questions that have yet to be answered with regards to that. And we definitely want to get some of those questions answered before we have any further comment.
How many teachers are in HSTA, and will the majority go back to school tomorrow despite your concerns?
Our unit is made up of 13,500 members approximately. And while we disagree with a lot of what's being said, our members will go back because our students are our number one priority. And if they're saying that we have to be with them, our teachers are going to do everything they can to keep students safe. But really, they feel in a bind. How can I keep my students safe when I'm forced to fit this many students in, when I have to do all these different things? And so they really feel that their hands are tied, that it's out of their hands basically to keep their students as safe as possible if we're plunging headfirst the way we are.
Do you know in what ways are teachers personally preparing for the new school year? You know, what steps are they doing to protect themselves as they head back to the classroom?
Oh yes, they're making sure that if PPE is not available, and I have heard from some teachers saying that they've been asking and have not been receiving the proper PPE that they need, despite what the department said today. They're having to purchase out of pocket, make sure that there are masks available. If they're having to buy the masks, sometimes they'll do whatever they need to do. And just making sure that students are placed around the classrooms. I've seen a lot of posts from our teacher doing everything they can to make sure that every nook and cranny they can put a student desk to keep them as safe as possible as they set up for the new school year.
Do you have any idea about the rate of teachers who are vaccinated?
So we did a poll of our members in February. And so out of the 13,500, we had about 11,000 or so respond saying that they had either gotten their first dose or they've gotten their second dose. I think some of them at that point were able to get their second dose, or that they plan to. And so that was around 70%. And since then, the department has reported to the Board of Education that they understand it's about 80%. And if I can just go back to Stephanie's, one other thing that comes to mind is I know teachers have been putting crayons and different types of things in bags so that there's no sharing of items. So all kinds of things that they're being done that teachers are doing to make sure that there's little sharing, little interaction as possible.